I'll start that vamp. When I start the vamp, that's the first of the 8.
Good morning. Welcome to Fountain Street Church. My name is Reverend Christopher Rowe, and I serve as the senior minister here. It's a privilege, and it's an honor, and it's a big responsibility, but it's also a joy, and one I take great pleasure in week after week as we gather together in pursuit of the divine spirit of love that lives within, among, and around each and every one of us. And it's in that spirit that we acknowledge here in this cathedral of love and this temple of peace that no matter who you are or where you are in this journey of life and living, each and every one of you who has found yourself here today has a place of belonging and value and belovedness in this church. And it is a gift to be together in that spirit. We have a few programming notes today. There is a cold bug going around, as you can tell. It's pretty vicious. Reverend Jody Benton is very sick with it, and she is not able to be here today. We made that decision yesterday, and so you will notice that there's a few little deviations from our program this morning. I always tell couples when they're getting married, and I tell families going through memorial services, and I say to our staff as we plan our Sunday gatherings that all of life and worship is improv anyway. So we will improvise before the spirit of creativity and truth and love and justice, and we will improvise together, so roll with it. You will see a few things that are a little different, and that's okay, because we are here on this Thanksgiving Sunday, on this Sunday of gratitude, as we gather to celebrate not only the gifts of gratitude, but the gifts of joy that are known from gratitude. And so it is in that spirit, as we gather together with one another, that I invite you to hear this call to community brought to us by one of my favorite liturgical writers, Jan Richardson. Hear this call to community with one another as we begin our time today. It is a strange thing to be so bound and so released all in the same moment, to feel the heart open wide and wider still, even as it turns to take its leave from us. On this day, let us say, this is simply the way that love moves. Let us say that this is the way that love moves in its ceaseless spiraling, turning us towards one another and sending us into what waits for us with arms open wide, for us to welcome in a new day of hope together. On this day, in this place where you have poured yourself out and where you have been emptied and filled time and time again, may you be aware more than ever of what your heart has been open to in this cathedral of love, what it has tended to and welcomed in this temple of peace, where it has broken in love and in grief, where it has given and received blessing, and where it has uncovered the unfathomable mystery that moves within us, that undoes us, and remakes us finally for the purpose of joy. This day, may you know the joy in full measure. This day, may you know this blessing that gathers in you and sends you forth, but does not forget you. Oh, hear us this day as we say grace, this day as we say grateful, this day as we say blessing, this day as we release one another into God's keeping and in gladness, support one another in this beloved community. Welcome to worship. Welcome to Fountain Street Church. Welcome to this day with one another. As we move through our time of worship with one another, I invite you to look to one another, into the belovedness of this community. Greet one another with the spirit of love, and then we will be called back with our gathering hymn. Our guiding reading this morning comes to us from Brother David Steindl-Rast. Hear these words as they call us into this time of gratitude and of joy with one another. You think that this is just another day in your life? It's not just another day. It's the one day that was given to you for today. It is given to you. It's a gift. It's the only gift you have right now, and the only appropriate response is gratefulness. If you do nothing else but to cultivate that response to the great gift of this one unique day, you will learn to respond on this very first day and last day of gratitude in a way that was spent well. Begin by opening your eyes and be surprised that you have eyes you can open, that see an incredible array of colors that is constantly offered for us simply for pure enjoyment. Look at the sky, or in our case, the windows. Notice the mosaic of light and inspiration. We so rarely look at the sky. We so rarely note how different it is from one moment to the next, with clouds coming and going. We just think of the weather, and even think of the weather in ways that doesn't really nuance the weather. We simply think of good weather and bad weather. The day right now, given to you and I as a gift, has unique weather. Maybe a kind of weather that will never be exactly the same or come again. The formation of clouds in the sky will never be the same as they are right now. Open your eyes and look at that. Look at the faces of the people you meet. Each one has an incredible story behind their face, a story that none of us could ever fathom. Not only their own story, but the stories of their ancestors. We all go back so far, and in this present moment on this day, all the people that you meet, all the life from generations and generations from all the places and all of the world will flow together, and it meets you here and now in this life-giving water. If only you will open your heart and drink from it. Open your heart to the incredible gifts that civilization gives us. You flip a switch, and there is electricity and light. You turn a faucet, and there is warm water and cold water, and any water in between, and drinkable water. It is a gift that millions and millions in the world will never experience. So these are just a few of the enormous number of gifts which you can open your heart to right now. So I wish for you that you would open your heart to all these blessings and let them flow through you, that everyone whom you will meet on this day will be blessed by you, just by your eyes, just by your smile, just by your touch, just by your presence. Let the gratefulness overflow into blessings all around you, and then it will be a really good day. Thank you. I have this searing image in my head several years ago of Senator Marco Rubio drinking from a glass of water. And he never broke gaze as he drank from it from the camera, and he was raised and hazed for months for that, and so I don't want to do that to you this morning. So I will try to be not awkward about that. So I'm of course disappointed Reverend Jody isn't here because we had prepared a service of gratitude and joy. She was going to take on the first half, which is talking about gratitude as a measure and a means towards joy, and I was going to go from there with an ode to joy, and of course an ode to this past year with one another. Because of the short notice, we have kind of recalibrated a bit here, and we're still going to talk about gratitude and joy. But I always like to go back to my first area of comfort, and that is looking towards what the research says about gratitude and joy. So I looked back at a few psychologists who've done a great deal of research at Cornell on gratitude, and I have shared their work with you before. So before we get into the heart of joy, I want to look back a bit at the heart of gratitude. Dr. Tom Gilovich and Dr. Shay Davidi, both of whom are behavioral economics psychologists at Cornell University, theorize that it is easier to feel disappointment than it is to feel gratitude. It's way easier to be disappointed than it is to be grateful. And they theorize that this is a psychological truth. This is simply a reality of our human condition. In their shared research and work at Cornell, they've developed this theory of the headwinds and tailwinds of gratitude. Some of you might even recall I introduced parts of this theory several years ago. If you've ever been on a run, or you're out sailing, or you're on a bike ride, or even in your own car, you know that moving towards the headwind takes way more energy, and it leads to more fatigue and exhaustion. And in their essay, The Headwinds and Tailwinds Asymmetry, they suggest that as humans, we have actually become conditioned to view all of our lives as a headwind. We've actually become conditioned to see everything in our lives as a headwind moving towards us. We hone in on life's challenges. We accumulate scarcity, be it real or fictionalized, and we anticipate disappointment and discouragement as a survival mechanism in our human spirit. Even when our lives are going great and full of abundance, and the winds should be at our back like a tailwinds, we are oft more aware of what we're missing. We assume that there are some things or some other things in our lives we are lacking. And we fashion false narratives designed to find a way of finding things that'll make us happier, or at least identifying things we believe will make us happier. But as we all know, and as their work has confirmed for many years now, gratitude and the posture of being a grateful person can provide us with this tailwind phenomenon. When we are actually aware of the things we are most grateful for, it gives us a physiological and psychological boost that acts as a tailwind to our spirit and to our psyche. And conversely, as you can all probably deduce and infer for yourself, the more that we focus on discouragement and dissatisfaction, the more that we manufacture and create these headwinds that work against us and our communities. And so that's the challenge, right? Existing in such a way that we don't actually manufacture these headwinds that are working against us. And when you look at it that way, it seems like there's a pretty simple solution, right? We just need to be thankful. We just need to practice more gratitude. Inventory the things for which we're thankful. Itemize a list of everything for which we're grateful. But that's not how it works either. Because as Gilovich and Davidi's collaborative work at Cornell points out, there's actually a bit of this hedonic treadmill effect that happens with gratitude. Also an effect I have preached on several years ago in this community. You see, many of us are actually pretty good at being aware of the things for which we're grateful. But that gratitude doesn't stick and it doesn't last because we are naturally pleasure seekers, or hedonists, if you will. Because we are always seeking pleasure, because we are always seeking gratification, because we are always seeking joy, we are always seeking the next thing that we think will give us that rush of gratitude and joy. Scientifically speaking, if you are out for that run, and you've been running towards the wind, and you finally turn a corner or change directions, and the wind is finally at your back, research shows that it is understood that for only about 50 seconds do you feel any kind of relief or reprieve before your body goes back into that mental state of exertion. And the same can be said for gratitude and the ways in which we understand our lived experience around us. Who among us has ever set their sights on the excitement of a new love, or a new career, or a new home, or a new life accomplishment, only find themselves to achieve that banner moment in their lives and then start seeking something more stimulating on the other side? You've all undoubtedly seen this in my life, as me and my husband, or my husband and I rather, have been absolutely convinced that if we find the perfect home, it'll be great. So we moved from house to condo a few months later to a new house, all in this pursuit of home, of rootedness and groundedness, completely unaware of the groundedness that was already within us. This, my friends, is the hedonic treadmill, and it reminds us that though they are profoundly helpful, the things that we're grateful for are only temporal and fleeting. Sure, they put a little wind in our sails for a moment, but they don't last forever. And if you were paying attention at all this fall, and we were getting into those ancient stories of the people of Israel finally getting out of the bondage of Israel and from the Pharaoh of their time, you have seen this story illustrate for us this ancient and infinite cycle of being human. Just think of those people fleeing the oppression and the enslavement and the bondage of Pharaoh, and quite frankly, just lucky to be alive and moving anywhere, only to move from that space of gratitude to discontentment and dissatisfaction. Do you remember? They're literally on a journey from enslavement. They have been freed, and what did they do next? They start complaining. Well, at least in Egypt we had garlic. At least Pharaoh fed us. We might not have been going anywhere, but at least we know where we were. That's the hedonic treadmill. And that is the reality that we face as we seek to cultivate gratitude and joy in our world and even in this church as we navigate a very challenging time in our human story. And so Gilovich and Davidi suggest that the answer to sustainable happiness and growth is actually in our gratitude for the things we don't see happening, in the movement that happens under the surface. A few years ago, I referred to this as invisible miracles. The profound miracles that we take for granted, and the powerful currents of life that we often fail to recognize. That ordinary magic that we swim within every day that Brother David put into his quote this morning. The miracles that remind us that this very day is not just any ordinary day in our life, but the day that was given as a gift to us, leaving it up to us to decide how we will appreciate and value that day. This moment that we share right now is an invisible miracle. And it puts into perspective the immensity of life. The fact that we are all assembled here and virtually at home, or sometime from now when people discover us, living and breathing in a nation we are still allowed to assemble in ways that are authentic to us, is a miracle. The fact that many of us largely have our physical health and those we love do too is a miracle. The fact that the roads of life and the currents of living have somehow brought each and every one of us together into this space and into this cathedral home is a miracle. The fact that despite our profound differences and our opinions and perspectives and desires and hopes vary immensely in this church, it is a miracle that we continue to come together with many voices committed to one vision of a more loving and just world. And the reality that 154 years ago, our spiritual ancestors loved us so much that they built a ministry for us to enjoy today is a miracle. All of these and each of these are miracles, albeit invisible, that contribute to enduring, lasting, and sustaining gratitude. So this is the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and subsequently also the Sunday of our annual meeting, in a time of great reflection and anticipation, appreciation, and of course, gratitude. And as we make our way into this Advent season next week and we begin to wind down this remarkable year, I want to take a moment to look at some of those miracles of this year and hold up a mirror to that gratitude that undoubtedly makes us joyful. For as Brother David reminds us in his quote this morning's program, it is not joy that makes us grateful. It is gratitude that makes us joyful. And I can't help but be joyful this morning when I consider how much our congregation has been through in these last few years and how far we've come as a beloved community. I can't help but be joyful for a community courageously committed to flourishing together, and a community willing to change old patterns and bravely develop new ones. I can't help but be joyful for a congregation that could have easily fallen apart or given up in the face of adversity and uncertainty from COVID onward, but instead chose paths of growth, change, transformation, and resilience. I can't help but be grateful for a church that has grown to numbers and attendance and engagement and participation that has eclipsed and surpassed that of our pre-COVID era, not because of the greatness that is found in metrics and numbers, but because of the goodness that our ministries still have to offer this world, and a world that is still willing to join us in our vision of a more loving world and a more just future. I can't help but be grateful this morning for a year in which we saw tremendous growth in our choral and music programs. And in return, that growth gave back to the community in the form of the Considering Matthew Shepard concert that took our community by storm. Not to mention their weekly gifts of anthems and songs of praise that lift our souls, inspire our spirits, and tether us into holy imagination with one another, week after week after week. I can't help but be grateful and joyful for a season in which 11 powerful voices from within our own church inspired our community over the course of the entire summer, entirely because of the dedication and the unwavering support of the Religious Services Committee, who nurtured and nourished those very voices and those stories into the remarkable gifts that they were for each of us. I can't help but be joyful for the powerfully healing and restorative work of our Choice Fund, who to date this year has provided $53,000 in assistance for over 850 people seeking abortion in our community this year alone. $53,000, 850 people, particularly at a time when reproductive freedom is in constant liminality. I can't help but be joyful for a year in which we experienced a swell of activities and culture and fun and flourishing solely and entirely because of the enduring contributions of volunteer-led groups and initiatives like the Women's Association, the Memorial Guild, the Art Committee, the Archives team, and the Arts and Architecture groups, just to name a few. Friends, so much has happened this year, more so than any other year since I've come here in 2018, and it's entirely due to the inspiration, motivation, implementation, and dedication of you. And for that, how could we not be joyful? I can't help but be joyful for all of the elected officials who serve on the governing board, the foundation board, and their standing committees, who, after countless volunteer hours, have contributed to the ongoing sustainability and resilience of our organization. And I can't help but be grateful for those of you who, even though you may not have always agreed with me or with the elected and steadfast leaders of our organization, continue to support the health of the whole and the wider work of our ministries. Even that is an invisible miracle. I can't help but be grateful and joyful for the kind, generous, and compassionate staff who, through much laughter and occasional tears, works collaboratively and lovingly to advance the mission and the vision of our church into its future. We are richly blessed with a dynamic, determined, and dedicated staff. I can't help but be joyful in a world with so much hurt and pain and uncertainty for a cathedral home and a sanctuary respite in which all who seek more love, more justice, more hope, and more peace can still find a place of authentic belonging, enduring belovedness, and ongoing hope. And I can't help but be joyful for each and every one of you who wake up each morning to the miracle of a new day that has been given to you, and who inherently makes our world better, and our community better, and this very church better, simply because of the belovedness that already exists within each and every one of you, and the belovedness that each of you bring into this church. What a miracle. What a miracle. This world is full of headwinds that are working against us. I don't need to list them. I know that you know what they are. But this world also promises a deep, deep well of invisible miracles and gratitude that promises to quench the thirst of joy, if only we are willing to go to that well and draw from it. And I pray that we will, and I pray that we do. What is your ode to joy this season? What is your gratitude chorus and anthem of praise that sings out and brings joy within our world and ushers in tailwinds of enduring hope and the winds of everlasting peace? What is your song of thanksgiving this Thanksgiving season that points to the well of abundance and the well of joy that flows around within and among us? Will you take a moment of silence to pray with me? Spirit of gratitude and everlasting joy, be with us as an enduring tailwind of hope. Be with us as a limitless well of faith. Be with us as an unending source of joy. In a world with so much hurt and suffering, unknown and known, help us to hold the multiple truths that exist within our world and within our hearts. Help us to care for those around and among us and ourselves. Help us to find the light of goodness in each and every day that presents as a new gift. May we be drawn to the well of joy and drink fully and freely. And may it be so. Amen. In the spirit of generosity and beloved connection, we have this rich tradition of the offering. It is more than just giving up money because we're grateful we have enough to give some away. It is more than just sharing it with other organizations. It is about the entrustment of belovedness. It is about trusting those gifts and those resources to organizations who can spread that impact farther than we could on our own. It is a sign of our interconnectedness and a joy that exists only in the context of human relationship. So in the spirit of that belovedness, in the spirit of our radical generosity that radiates beyond these walls, in the spirit of thanksgiving, the offering will now most graciously be received.
Good morning. We're gonna play for you. I just wanted to mention that I really love this song by Jobim, and I've played it here a couple of times before. When I was asked to bring the trio in to play for you today, I wasn't told what to play, so those are all my selections, really based on, I don't know what the sermon's gonna, what are we doing? But okay, it's Thanksgiving, so of course, Over the River and Through the Woods popped into my head. And then this one, because it's a sweet song about finding home within. And No More Blues, I'm Going Back Home. Just a vamp on D minor, 1, 2, No more blues, I'm going back home. No more blues, I promised I want to roam. Home is where the heart is, the funny part is, my heart's been right there all along. No more blues and no more sighs, no more fears, I'll say no more goodbyes. If travel beckons me, I swear I'm gonna refuse, I'm gonna settle down, there'll be no more blues. Every day, while I was far away, my thoughts turned homeward, forever homeward. I traveled around the world in search of happiness, but all my happiness I found was in my hometown. No more blues, I'm going back home. No more blues, I'm through with all my wandering. Now I'll settle down and never roam. I'll find a friend, make a home. When we settle down, there'll be no more blues. Nothing but happiness when we settle down. There'll be no more blues. more blues, I promise no more to roam. Home is where the heart is, but the funny part is my heart's been right there all along. And no more tears and no more sighs, no more fears, I'll say no more goodbye if travel beckons me. I swear I'm gonna refuse, I'm gonna settle down, there'll be no more blues. Every day while I was far away, my thoughts turned homeward, forever homeward. I traveled round the world in search of happiness. All my happiness I found was in my hometown. No more blues, no, I'm going back home. No more dues, I'm through with all my wandering. Now I'll settle down and never roam. I'll find a friend, make a home. When we settle down, there'll be no more blues. Nothing but happiness when we settle down. There'll be no more blues. Nothing but happiness when we settle down. There'll be no more blues. No more blues, I'm going back home. Oh, I'm so full of joy, I'm going back home. Gracias.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's always such a treat to have you with us. Friends, as we move through this time of gratitude and joy with one another, I want us to take a moment just to be present with the divine spirit that is within us, the spirit of gratitude, the spirit of self-awareness and enlightenment and joy. And so in whatever way is comfortable for you, I want to invite you into this time of hope and renewal as we pray this prayer of thanksgiving. Will you please join me in a posture that is comfortable for you? God of creation, source of abundance, spirit of gratitude and joy. There are certainly days where we do not feel grateful, where we are anxious or angry, or we feel alone. Days where we see and know injustice. Days where we do not understand what is happening in this world, or what is happening for our neighbors. We struggle to feel gratitude. But Spirit of Hope, this Thanksgiving, help us to choose gratitude. Help us to choose and accept life as a gift from you. Help us to choose the unfolding work of creation as a gift. Help us to choose to be grateful for the earth from which our food comes, for the water which sustains us, and for the air which we breathe even now. We choose to see our ancestors this year, those who came before us and their stories, as a continuing gift of wisdom for each of us today. We choose to see our families and our friends with new eyes, appreciating them for who they are, thankful for our homes, whether humble or grand. Help us to be grateful for our neighbors and strive to love them as we love ourselves. Help us to choose to see the whole planet as our shared commons, the stage of the future of humankind and creation that continues to unfold and unfurl around us. God of creation and source of abundance, this Thanksgiving, we do not give thanks, we choose it. We will make thanks with courageous hearts. When we see your sacred generosity, we become aware that we live in an infinite circle of gratitude. We are all guests at a beloved table around which gifts are passed and received. And we will not let anything opposed to love take over this table. Instead, help us to choose to open our eyes to see the grace and the gifts of life everywhere visible and invisible. And in this choosing, help us to share our gratitude with the whole world. And so with your liminal and luminous spirit, and with all who have gathered in this cathedral of love, help us to pledge to make thanks. Give us your strength in this resolve here and now and into the future, around this table of our belovedness, around this table of our church, around this table of our nation, around this table of our world, around this table of our family, our friends, and our hearts. In the spirit of thanksgiving, in the spirit of gratitude, in the spirit of joy, may it be so. May it be so. Thank you. You may be seated. I was saying to my husband Jonathan this last week that Christmas Eve, Easter, and Thanksgiving Sunday are the three services in which I use my executive privileges to put 4 hymns in. And he said, that doesn't really work with your whole scarcity and abundance and sufficiency teachings, does it? But here we are. I'm grateful for your sportsmanship as we sang those 4 hymns this morning. Friends, as we get ready to go forth from this time with one another, we of course have several weekly invitations and announcements. Of course, this beautiful cornucopia that I want to draw our attention to, it was given by Penelope and John Collins Jr., specifically as a symbol and an expression of thanksgiving for the bounty of our church's collective family. our past, our present, and our future. We are so grateful for this beautiful gift every year. We will keep it up here for tomorrow evening's Thanksgiving Interfaith service. Speaking of which, tomorrow is the Interfaith celebration. Groups from all over West Michigan, representing all of the different faith traditions found in West Michigan, will be here tomorrow, including humanists and non-theists, all the way over to different sects of Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Jainism, Baha'i, Muslim. It's going to be a wonderful service. We will be right here at 7 o'clock. And after that, at 8 o'clock, there will be a festive reception in the social hall. Many hands have come together to make that an inclusive and beloved time with one another. So I hope you can be here tomorrow for the Interfaith Thanksgiving celebration, sponsored by the Kauffman Institute over at Grand Valley State University, a community partner of ours. You, of course, are invited to go to the social hall, as always. It's a wonderful place for us to come together, to connect, to be in beloved community with one another. But first, for those of you who wish to stay, we are going to have our annual meeting right at noon, and it's noon 01, so I got pretty close here. So we will be right here in the sanctuary. It's time for the annual membership meeting, so if you wish to stay for that presentation, I invite you to stay right where you are, because we will bring in the people who are leading that, and we will move into that. And then, of course, you are also invited to leave if you don't wish to stay for that, or go over to the social hall following our annual meeting. So that is happening right after the service. We also have a Thanksgiving gathering. This is another reminder for that, 2 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day for anybody who wishes to gather here. There is a way to RSVP, or you can talk to Margie Dirks-Peterson or Darlie Lutz. So that's just a way that we'll have turkey and juice and things provided for that, and then you can bring a side dish. So it's another way to connect with one another. As we go forth from this time, will you please help me express gratitude, of course, for Joe DeWinkle, who was with us today. Our amazing trio led by Robin Connell, thank you. Thank you, all three of you. And of course, to everyone who has been behind the scenes to make this possible, from our AV crew to the ushers and greeters, we couldn't do it without any of those folks. As we go forth from this time with one another, and we are pursuing a world that is just overflowing with joy, I want to invite you to find those invisible miracles. I want to invite you to find those enduring gifts of hope that put a wind to our back as we go forth. One of my favorite things about church, besides the music, besides the beauty and the aesthetic and the inspiration, is of course the fact that this is one of the only places where people from these diverging walks of life share one common vision of a more loving world. Look around you. There are many people, many faces, many individuals for whom you've never met and may never meet. Many walks of life, or social circles, or parts of town, or parts of our community you will never encounter. Political perspectives, even here at Fountain Street Church, social perspectives, religious views, entirely unlike your own. But the invisible miracle of this place, and my Thanksgiving token of gratitude this year, is the joy of being in a place that holds all of it in this womb of hope. May you go forth this week celebrating that you are celebrated as an imperative part of this beloved community. May you have a Thanksgiving that is rooted in love. And may you have a week of gratitude that is found at the well of joy. Go forth in peace and know you are appreciated. I'm grateful and joyful for each of you. Happy Thanksgiving.